Good morning. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's another Wednesday. Not just any Wednesday. It's actually the Wednesday before Halloween, so we have a very special treat for you. I'm hiding behind the camera. You can't quite see me today. Not just because of Halloween, but turns out that I have some video problems this week. So, but in any case, we have a very special guest today, Brad Reinboldt from Network Instruments, now part of JDSU. But before I introduce Brad and his interesting presentation, let me just go through our panel. First, we have actually Tom Tosh is back. We interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and Tom is back. Hi, Tom.
Hello.
So, is your website up now?
No.
No? But
No.
when will it be up, in case people wanted to know more about you and your product?
It'll be up by the demo.
Okay, all right, and then that would be in 2 weeks.
Right.
So we look forward to that. Next we have Chris Bihari. Chris is back again. Keep breaking his own record, actually. Keep showing up.
Yeah, happy Halloween. Looking forward to a scary presentation.
Yeah, so how was the webcast last week, the webinar last week?
Great. Tim did an awesome job.
Now, in case people missed it and they wanted to see it again, this is actually the webinar that we talk about a lot on this show, which is Tim talked about lawful intercept. How would they go about getting that clip?
Yeah, if they want to see the video, they can go to garlandtechnology.com and they can access it from the homepage.
And if they're not careful, they might even buy some tabs there, right?
That's right. You never know.
Yeah. And then finally, we have Tony. Hi, Tony.
Hello, hello, hello.
Good morning in peaceful Canada.
Yes, peaceful today. Yes.
Yeah, I know. So, and in case people wanted to find you, how would they do that? You don't have your name banner up, but how would they find you?
I'm at the techfirm.com, and they can go to my website. All sorts of videos and goodies for them to have, and that's where it all is.
And then you can check the RCMP hotline.
People should really subscribe to Tony's YouTube channel. He promises everything you wanted to know about networking in 3 minutes, right?
Maybe 4. There's 250 of them there, so.
Okay, and finally, back to Brad. Brad is I forgot. I don't have all my resources with me today. Brad, tell us about yourself.
Sure. Well, my name is Brad Reinboldt. I am a senior manager here, marketing manager at Network Instruments, JDSU. And so, I've been with the business, in the company, with the business about 5 years, and we're in the market of packet capture, analysis, polling technologies, understanding networks, applications, and the services that run on top, and getting that information, the right information, to the right user to quantify the performance and health of those resources and make sure they're running optimally.
Good. And how long have you been with Network Instruments?
About 5 years.
So
during that time, I've accumulated hundreds and hundreds of scary things, but I kind of worked through the list and boiled it down to the 10 most scary. Okay.
Well, we look forward to that. And also, before we start, you will be back, if I understand it correct. You will be back after New Year and do a live demo on your product.
That's right, with the condition that I don't blow it today, right? You guys are expecting me to execute, but if so, yes, I'll be back in January. And like I said, we'll do a demonstration at that time and really kind of show you the product and its capabilities, and again, the wealth of information it can provide users.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna put up your slides, and
sure.
And then you tell me what to do.
All right, so we'll just start by introducing the fact that in the spirit of Halloween, we kind of came up with this list here at Network Instruments, and I want to kind of start the conversation by saying that the purposes of levity and for a little fun today, tongue in cheek, we'll go through these, but I also kind of want to really convey that these are challenges for our customers. network engineers, network administrators, operations folks. And so, as I go through them, we talk about them and make light of them, it's also understood that, these are real challenges, and understanding how we can help address those for our customers is critical. And, with that, I think we'll just go ahead and begin the process here. You could start with number 10.
Number 10.
Yes.
I'm doing my best David Letterman imitation.
Sure.
Number 10.
Okay. So number 10 is, of course, the infamous, the CEO wants her email, went down over the weekend. They want it back up as soon as possible. And, of course, you could substitute any application or whatever the particular thing is they want, but you know how it is. You leave on Friday, everything is operating fine, and then suddenly you get that IM or that call saying that you're needed back at the office immediately, and for you the weekend is kind of over. And so this is an example of something, that dreaded call, that feeling you get when you walk into a haunted house, right? That's the 10th, number 10 in terms of scary nightmares. And this guy here is a good representation of exactly how they at least look to you when you take that call. How about number 9?
Number 9.
So this is a perfect one. Any IT product with the word virtualization or abstraction in its description is like the worst nightmare for a network person, right? I mean, why is that, right? I mean, all this clarity that they had before the virtualization or abstraction occurred, I'm talking about things like SDN and so forth, all that can be sort of degraded and or lost. And they're still kind of left holding the bag in terms of making sure those applications and services, they're operating and functioning properly. And yet, depending upon the situation, they can be left trembling with fear because, again, suddenly there's tunneling going on, and or the virtualization team, server virtualization team has been at it again, and they can be kind of left out there in the dark with the ghosts and goblins. How about number 8?
Number 8. The scariest things in the networking.
You betcha. So again, this is that poor app or service performance. Everybody on this call understands this. When something goes wrong with applications or services, the very first person that's always called and is always assumed guilty until proven innocent, of course, is the networks team. And so as they're out there doing their daily duties, and then something comes up like an application or a service problem, again, they get the call, and it's really up to them to try to figure out, what is it? And it's interesting because for our customers, this is sort of an ongoing angst. This is not something that goes away after Halloween or before, comes around Halloween. It's there all the time like a slow burn because, again, it's necessary and sufficient to have that layer 2 to 4, but you got to have that layer 5 to 7 functioning properly as well and being able to really ascertain what's going on. And even if you've kind of make yourself innocent and kind of can clear your name, oftentimes it's still the network team that has to go about figuring out, who is kind of the problem, and at least give a little bit of insight in terms of what the problem is and where they might go about resolving it. Whether it's the, the underlying infrastructure team, the server team, the app team, the storage team, wherever it might be. Again, in this day and age, they really need to be able to provide that added insight to resolve those issues. How about number 7? This one in particular.
There's number 7.
Sure.
Scariest stories in the networking industry.
Yeah.
Oh.
We have a layer 8 problem there, no pun intended. So the CIO wants a new rollout of unified communications, right? And this is a classic one in terms of, problems for the network administrator. I mean, it's, they're going along fine, and then they're kind of called into the boardroom, and they decide to deploy a new unified communications, and of course, in this day and age, that's going to mean video as well. And here at Network Instruments, we always talk about video as sort of VoIP on steroids, right? I mean, it wants to kind of consume bandwidth and really stress the latency of the overall infrastructure and network. And it can be a real bane for a network administrator because they're usually left holding the bag in terms of making sure, their resources are operating optimally. And it's funny because when I thought about this one, what really came to mind is everybody on the call seen the movie, the Chucky movies, right? People know, right? Well, how's it go in those movies, right? Somebody brings in this doll into the household, everything's fine, and then strange things start to kind of happen, right? Usually they're not real pleasant. And with unified communications, oftentimes the vendor comes in, they do their thing, and then after they've left and the consultants have left, things kind of work fine for a while. Then perhaps the network's utilization begins to rise, and or other applications are deployed, and then suddenly maybe calls start to drop, or there starts to be significant degradation of those calls and those video sessions. Oftentimes it might be things like quality of service and or other type of things that are consuming those resources. But again, the network administrator, he or she, they've got to kind of do the forensic research to figure out what the issue is and then go about resolving those issues. And again, this is a classic one that is really a horror story for the network team as they try to keep their infrastructure operating properly. How about number 6?
Number 6, coming up.
So this is one that, it's actually sends shivers down their spine. Anytime people talk about service orchestration or dynamic self-service provisioning and that sort of thing, I mean, this is a beautiful story in theory. There's obviously tremendous promise as organizations try to really deploy and maximize their CapEx expenditures. They invest all these dollars in this infrastructure and they want it to operate properly. But from the network side perspective inside of the story, they're kind of left, they're the lifeblood, no pun intended, of the overall infrastructure, and they're kind of left making sure that as these resources spin up and spin down, that infrastructure, those highways, those arteries, whatever you want to call it, are big enough and wide enough and thick enough to really be able to handle all that activity that's kind of going up and down. And it's a challenge, and we've got some number of big organizations. They're not really quite to the self-service catalog level yet, but they're heavily kind of self-serving and setting up their infrastructure from a virtualization perspective. They're going to get there pretty soon, and they're coming to us and asking us, how are we going to kind of maintain this visibility? How are we going to handle these significant surges in network bandwidth and requirements from a latency perspective as these things spin up and down? And don't forget, these can be deployed anywhere in the world. They can be on site, they can be in the cloud, they can be some sort of hybrid, and it really doesn't matter from an end user perspective. They expect the service and application to be running fine. And if it's not, again, going back to number 8, the very first person they're going to call is the network administrators. How about number 5?
Number 5, coming up. Oh, we're naming names now.
Yeah, right. And, I want to right away say right up front, it's not applicable just to Cisco and VMware. The point really is that, as an organization deploys any significant infrastructure, be it on the server or underlying, networking, the problem is that anytime you do that, it's like a huge perturbation to the overall, operational perspective. And it really depends upon the network team to kind of get the instrumentation in place to make sure that they have the visibility, or they maintain the visibility, after these events occur, to make sure that they can, still get the insight and awareness that they need to be certain that those services and everything continue to run at the level that, again, users expect. And that's a theme overall too. We're seeing our customers come to us and say the expectations are continually rising. They need to be certain that those services can be delivered essentially instantaneously to all the stakeholders, employees, customers, and beyond. They got to be there, and they got to be on all the time. And so that pressure, that slow burn, is always right there. How about number 4?
Number 4.
So this is one that just, again, strikes terror, right? I mean, this is just truly a nasty one. This is kind of like your worst horror movie, right? You're out there, you're working, and then suddenly you detect and or note that somebody's been messing around and doing things that they ought not to do. And this is, this is almost like a grenade in the room, right? I mean, it's something like this occurs. Someone's doing things that, again, that they don't have the authority to do. It could have global implications to the business. And in some of our larger enterprise accounts, there's a real emphasis on really locking down everything, even from a monitoring perspective, in terms of what you can see and what you have access to. Our products are all about passively looking at the infrastructure, but there's always that concern that somehow, someone's going to get out there and break something or change something that will manifest itself as degraded service and application performance. And again, this is just truly a nightmare that needs to be constantly kind of kept up on and avoided at all cost. So all right, we're getting down to number 3. I think we should start with that one. Now it's going to get really grim, right? So the day after major enterprise-wide application rollout, this is actually a picture, not of one of our customers, of one of our competitors. That's a joke, by the way. No, it just really speaks to the fact that when these large deployments occur, we have a number of significant customers who go through this, say with SAP or what have you. They deploy these applications. They do all their due diligence beforehand. They work with the consultants. They work with the application teams to make sure things are kind of there. But once it's actually out there operating, that's where the rubber hits the pavement. And I'm a hardware guy. In the old days, I worked on Big Iron and in the Mid-Hudson Valley in New York. And I always tell folks, you can do what you want. You can deploy it wherever you'd like. But ultimately, if it's not running on hardware in a manner that allows it to function seamlessly across the various tiers, you're going to have a problem. And so these day after events, it's a sense of foreboding. Think of the worst horror movie you've seen, and you know how it kind of builds, right? It starts building, and as they approach that creepy house and they walk in the front door, that there may be problems, right? And so that's what our network operations and enterprise administrators really kind of feel as that day of no return approaches.
Okay.
All right.
So we're getting close.
That's right. Number 2. And here we go. Here's another bane of existence, right? And this is still on the horizon for most customers. But as we talk to some of our key customers out there, we're really starting to get individuals saying, this is a great idea. This is the way to make our entire business run more efficiently. But from a network operations team's perspective, unless it's handled properly, unless they're kind of kept in the loop and made aware of things that are kind of going on, they can be real problems. And I've read a couple of times where organizations have gone out and sort of said, well, we're going to take control of this and empower ourselves, and we're going to make this, we're going to kind of make our organization run more seamlessly. And then suddenly, there's a problem, and they reach out to the network operations team, and they're like, well, we're not too aware of what's going on here. We see an uptick in bandwidth, but we don't really understand exactly what's going on, and you need to kind of fill us in. And so this guy here is kind of a manifestation of exactly what that can look like if it's not done properly. Again, there's great promise, but it has to be done in a manner that the network team can really keep a handle on exactly what's going on across the infrastructure, because again, ultimately, they are responsible, and they're the first throat that's going to be choked when a problem occurs. And so, are we ready for number 1?
Yes.
We need a drum roll, but
we need a drum roll, and this is the most scary networking nightmares.
The tension is palpable. You have to do it, Denny. There it is, right? Meet the server virtualization team. This is one that strikes complete and utter terror into the very heart and soul of network administrators, right? Here you have Bill Lumberg, right, from Innotech, and you can just kind of imagine Bill like, yeah, we're going to need to abstract and virtualize our servers some more, and yeah, we want your services and applications to be certain that they're operating properly across that infrastructure. And again, it's a great theme, and it's a wonderful technology as part of self-provisioning and that whole IT self-service. But if you don't have that instrumentation and you don't have that awareness within that greater infrastructure, there can be negative implications, and it's not sufficient just to be at the perimeter, at the server access layer. You need to understand what's going on within the hypervisor. You need to understand what's going on, as they kind of communicate between each other. And then, of course, as they exit at that perimeter, you can also get some visibility there. But depending upon how the actual application is deployed, you may just have a situation where stuff goes in, a bunch of things kind of happen in this big black box, and then stuff comes out. And if you don't kind of know the steps in between, it can just manifest itself as poor application or server performance, and leave the network and virtual operations teams kind of not aware of what's kind of happening there and what's going on. And so again, the ability to really strike fear, if it's not done properly, is always there. So what do people think? Were they scared?
So Tony, I noticed that I couldn't quite read your facial expression, but I have to believe that these are the 10 most important revenue driver for you, right?
Well, that's one way to think about it, sure. Yes, and very well done, by the way, Brad. It was very entertaining. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, it was very well done.
Yeah, and it's really, as I said at the beginning, all these technologies offer tremendous promise. They can really optimize the dollars spent in the IT environment. And of course, in this day and age, it's a must. It's required. But it's just got to be done in a really thoughtful way. And if you do it that way, you're still going to get some growing pains. But it'll be a fairly beautiful story. And if you don't, you'll still get there. But between there and the end, you may have some grief.
Well, I got one for you. Just here's a picture of a ladder just the other week on a power switch in the LAN room. And every time the maintenance guy would walk by to get his ladder, guess what?
Wow.
I love it. I love it.
You can't make that stuff up, right?
Now, would you call that a layer 8 problem? Is that layer 8?
Definitely.
So what do other people think? Is these type of things resonate? I mean, are you all seeing that? Tim, what do you think? I mean, do these frighten you a little bit?
Well, they don't frighten me because I don't run a network anymore. But
Would they frighten you? Okay.
I tell people that running a network is scary every day.
Yeah.
All it takes is one mistake, and as we add the cloud virtualization, real-time protocols, and IPv6,
right.
Things can become nasty very quick. I mean,
it's so hypersensitive. The sensitivity to any sort of downtime is just getting thinner and thinner.
Well, I mean, a breach today costs, on an average, $15 million, and that's for a mid-sized company. Some of the big ones we've talked about lately are costing, could cost hundreds of millions. So just even the simplest action can cause monstrous effect. Like, when you move that ladder and shut all the power down in the network, that is a minor problem that's significant.
Right. Well, when we've kind of talked to our customers, there's just like this slow burn for a lot of them too, because the pressure, these technologies are coming and they're doing what they can, in terms of instrumentation and getting ready for it. But there's just like this, there's a real pressure, from the business side to continue to execute from a technical perspective, but always that user experience, always making sure you're up, and really even driving revenue and profitability of the company, and it's being laid on their shoulders, and it is kind of a Chucky horror story. I mean, it really is pressure, and it's not just today and tomorrow; it's every day.
Well, I mean, Chris and I were talking about when we did lawful intercept the other day. Chris and I have a common going joke with Denny and all the guys here is, why are we still discussing taps? You can't see your network, so it don't matter what's going on. You can't see what happens. Starting from the basic, and we've got people out there that are having problems that they don't have a clue where to begin because they can't even start to see it.
Wow.
And then the second thing is understand it. Douglas and I, your founder, and I used to always jokingly talk about anybody can find a bad packet. It's taking that bad packet and finding a solution to make the network run better. And
here. That's true.
And it's just virtualization. Oh my gosh, some of the things you mentioned. I know Tony has a nightmare with it. Tom has nightmares with it. Chris does. We all do. It doesn't matter where you live. You know with it.
So our customers are looking at like SDN and other kind of virtual overlays on the network, and all that abstraction. It's great, but again, I was a hardware guy, so I like to remind people, you can provision as much bandwidth as you want, but if it's a 10 gig pipe, that's all that's going through it. And I don't care how much tunneling you do, I don't care how much encapsulation you do, that pipe, when it's filled, it's going to manifest itself as problems for the ops and services, and you got to kind of make sense of that and be aware of it and be proactive. Again, the technology's there and the capability to really maximize the value of these big dollars, and they're not cheap, any of these things, but just don't forget the monitoring team.
But it's always a network problem, right, Tony?
It's always a network until proven innocent.
You got that right. That's universal. It's like a universal. So
Hey, Tom, what did you say?
Where the finger first gets pointed.
Yeah, it's like a compass, always pointing north.
The more vendors that you get into it, the more chances you have to point the finger somewhere else. It's always you're guilty until proven innocent. So you have to come up with a good story to prove. And they usually do. They say, oh, here's why it can't be possibly my server. This is why.
Well, that's all right. Just add more bandwidth to it.
Right.
Well, it's
That's
usually,
a classic. Yeah.
It's going to be the analyst that comes in and does the right things to put the pieces of the elephant together. Because when you get in these rooms, it's like the old story of the blind men and the elephant. Everyone sees their own little area of expertise, and because they're all blind to the other areas. And it's usually the network analyst that starts putting the pieces together. So the other thing I thought, number 3, the day after major app rollout, the first people I thought of was level 1 support desk.
Oh yes, God bless them, right?
Those guys, that's scary stuff. I mean, that's Halloween.
Right.
Time's over.
It's funny because here in Minneapolis, I know of a couple of major data centers, and I always chuckle. They're always very nondescript. And when you go and you drive by like Sunday evening and you look in this massive parking lot and there's like 10, 15 cars, and I'm always like, I hope you're okay in there. I know what you're doing. You're rolling something out, and you got about 6 hours to back it off if it doesn't work. And either your day will be short or your night will be short or it'll be long. Yes. And and you know what they're doing in there most likely.
Yeah, most of the time they're running around in a firefight with a box of Band-Aids.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Yeah, and the clock is ticking. And depending upon the organization, you may not even get Sunday night anymore. I mean, if it's worldwide, that's gone too. By the way, they're going to give you a 2 or 4 hour window, and it might be, prime time in Singapore, and you're going to have to move fast, and you better kind of execute on all cylinders, or there's going to be problems.
Yeah, this was great. People. I would love one day to sit down and actually put together a list of every problem that you could possibly have in a network. But, I mean, like, even from the fun, I started a list. I think I said to you, Tony, a list of attacks, malware attacks, how they start from the Git post, all that, and I started looking at it. I thought, oh my gosh, this is just a scratch.
Right. Those are only the malicious ones. What about the layer 8 problems? What about? I mean, there's just an infinite. I mean, you're gonna be busy for a long time.
I won't live that long. I'm not worried about it. But yeah, it was scary. I looked at it. I said it to Tony, I think, and I sent it to some other analysts that are in the federal government, and they were all like, "That's so scary," and yet that's just it's the old story about the airplane. My airplane is so small in such a great big sky. Please help me find my way, Lord. And it's a very tough environment out there.
Yeah, I mean, but having said that, again, I kind of go back to the start. These technologies are really just fantastic. And their ability to, to deliver on some real capabilities. I think the promise is there. And again, as long as folks that monitor and manage these networks kind of keep up with it, and they will. These problems are always solved. I mean, it was gig and then 10 gig and then server virtualization and started 5-10 years ago, and VoIP 5-10 years ago. We've been through this before. It just seems like we've kind of the exponent is higher now. It was 10 to the third, now it's 10 to the fifth in terms of pain, and it's just a matter of really keeping abreast of these trends and addressing them and being as proactive as you can. And that's the other thing. And in terms of working with our customers, it tends to be very reactive. And to the extent that you can get in front of that 8-ball, it really behooves you.
I think a lot of managers will print these slides out if they have them and put them on their wall, and then every day they'll go through and say, "Nope, I ain't got that one today. Oop, got this one today."
It's Halloween year round then.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Yeah. That's what we do in our.
Well, business. I think. So I hope, Brad. I hope you enjoyed today's show.
Yes, I did.
I think we can go on for another 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun.
But I think that I want to keep this to a 30-minute show. And so I'm gonna close and invite you back. I understand that we have scheduled you for basically the first show of 2015.
Great. We're looking forward to that.
Yeah, where you do a live demo. So with that, I want to thank you again, and I want to thank my panel. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Chris and Tom. Tom, hopefully you come back as a regular. We look forward to doing that. And Tim, take care. Have a great day out there, and thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
Brad.
Okay, thank you.
You can hang on.
Bye, everyone.